Hello everyone, and thank you for joining Gold is Gold Wisdom. My name is Michael Davis, and I would like to share a story that has stayed with me. At the age of 65, I made a bold decision to meet someone new, a possible companion to spend the next phase of life with. But what began with hope turned into one of the strangest experiences I've ever had. A little about myself. I retired 5 years ago, after spending over 30 years teaching high school math. I now live in a calm 2-bedroom condo in sunny Florida. My only daughter, Sarah, lives far away in New York. My wife passed away 3 years ago, and while life since then has been calm, it has also felt quite lonely. Most of my time has gone into gardening, reading, and volunteering at the local library. Still, something always felt missing. So I thought it was time to seek companionship. Not marriage necessarily, just someone to share days with, someone to laugh with and make memories. One day, my neighbor Linda, who organizes events in our community, suggested I meet Christine, a retired nurse who lived nearby. Linda mentioned that Christine was also open to companionship and believed we might have things in common. With her encouragement, I decided to reach out. After a short phone chat, Christine and I agreed to meet for coffee at a local cafe. As the day came closer, I noticed I was feeling unexpectedly anxious. The idea of dating, or even meeting someone this way, felt unfamiliar after all these years. On the morning of our meeting, I went through my closet twice before picking a clean white shirt and a blazer I had not worn in a long time. I reached the cafe 15 minutes early, chose a window seat, ordered a cappuccino, and waited feeling both excited and unsure. Christine arrived right on time. She came in confidently, wearing a soft blue blouse and simple earrings. Her warm smile helped me feel more comfortable right away. As she came over, I stood up to greet her, and after a brief hello, we sat down. The first part of our conversation felt smooth. Christine talked about her work as a nurse and her recent retirement. She mentioned her son, who had moved to Chicago for a job, and her love for cooking. I shared stories from my teaching years, spoke about my daughter in New York, and how much I enjoy gardening. We found common ground. We both valued quiet moments and understood the challenges of adjusting to life after so many years of routine work. For a while, talking with her felt easy, and I began to feel more at ease. But as time went on, Christine's tone began to shift. Her manner grew more serious, signaling a change in the mood of the conversation. Christine leaned in slightly, her face still kind, but now more thoughtful. She began by saying how much she respected my honesty and openness, traits she truly appreciated. Then, she said she had a few expectations. Specifically, 4 clear conditions if a relationship was to move forward. At first, I thought her directness was actually a good thing. It is often better to be clear from the beginning rather than avoid uncomfortable topics. But as she began explaining the first condition, I felt myself starting to have second thoughts. Christine suggested a 6-month trial period where we would live together. While the idea was unusual, it was not completely unreasonable. Living together before making a deeper commitment, she said, could help us understand each other better and check if we were truly a good fit. But it was what came next that really surprised me. In order to start this trial period, she asked me to place $20,000 into a shared account. She explained this would act as a commitment deposit to show that I was serious and genuine about moving forward. If things did not work out, she added, she would return a portion of the money based on how long we had stayed together. As she explained, I felt a rush of emotion, surprise, confusion, and even a little disappointment. It was not just the amount, although $20,000 is no small figure. What truly bothered me was the idea behind the request. It made things feel transactional, as if real commitment could be judged by money. I tried to keep my face calm, but my mind was filled with questions. Part of me wanted to ask if she was actually serious, but I didn't want to sound rude or dismissive. So I stayed quiet and listened. Even though my thoughts were already running in circles, was this her way of staying financially safe? Maybe. She had been hurt before and was trying to protect herself. But even if that were true, it still didn't sit right with me. Relationships, especially later in life, should be rooted in trust, respect, and shared values. They should not begin with financial terms. I could not ignore the feeling that this turned what should have been a personal connection into something more like a deal. What happened to slowly getting to know someone, to learning each other's habits and finding happiness in simple shared moments? This was not what I had pictured when I decided to try dating again. As Christine kept explaining her thoughts, I found myself trying to make sense of what this request really said about her. Maybe she had been through something that left her cautious emotionally or financially. And maybe this was her way of protecting herself from going through that again. Still, it did not change how I felt. Starting something new with a financial agreement at its core felt odd. It wasn't only the money. It was about what the money stood for. If I had to show trust and sincerity by paying a large amount, what did that say about her idea of relationships? I really did try to understand her point of view, but the more I thought about it, the more uncertain I became. At this stage in life, relationships should be about connection and mutual care, not about meeting a list of demands. Even with my discomfort growing, I chose to stay quiet and let her talk. I didn't want to assume things or shut her down too quickly. After all, I had agreed to this meeting with an open heart. But as Christine started talking about her second condition, it became harder for me to imagine how this could work without giving up what I believed in. Christine moved into the next part of her plan with ease, clearly sure of what she wanted in a relationship. She shared that one of her long-time dreams was to visit Hawaii, a place she connected with peace, beauty, and romance. But this would not be just any regular vacation. She imagined spending an entire month there, including a full professional photo shoot to mark the experience. She spoke with energy, painting a picture of peaceful beach walks at sunset, helicopter rides over volcanoes, and casual pictures capturing the beginning of what she hoped it would mark a fresh start for the both of us. At first, I understood the emotion behind it. A dream vacation to Hawaii did sound beautiful, and I could tell how much it meant to her to imagine such a meaningful experience. But as she continued, her expectations started becoming clearer, and, honestly, more overwhelming. Christine expected me to pay for everything. She explained that she would handle all the details, making sure I would not have to worry about a thing. "I will take care of everything," she assured me. "Flights, hotels, every single arrangement. All you need to do is relax and enjoy." I smiled politely, but inside I was feeling uneasy. A trip to Hawaii is not something small, especially not one that would last a full month. It wasn't only about the cost. I began to question how realistic this was, especially so early in a relationship. What stood out even more was her insistence on having a professional photo shoot while we were there. Christine said the photos would represent our connection, something we could look back on as a sign of the future we might share. As nice as that may sound, it felt like too much too soon. We had not even spent one full day together, and she was already picturing us taking framed pictures in coordinated Hawaiian clothes. That made me feel uncomfortable. A trip like this was not just about money. It showed a level of closeness and commitment that did not match where we were. To me, relationships should grow naturally, step by step. This felt like jumping to the final chapter without even going through the beginning. As Christine went on, I tried to make sense of what this really meant. Was her love for grand plans part of who she was? Or was there something else behind it? Maybe after spending much of her life caring for others, between her job as a nurse and raising her son, She finally wanted to focus on herself. And while I could respect that, it was hard to accept the idea that I would be expected to cover everything got. It wasn't just the cost, it was the pressure that came with it. The message felt clear. To show I cared, I had to pay for it all. But the kind of relationship I was looking for was different. I wanted something based on understanding, shared values, and the little things. I was not looking to build something around expensive plans or financial responsibility. The thought of starting anything under these expectations left me more unsure than ever. And as Christine moved on to her third condition, I prepared myself. At that point, I had no idea what was coming next, but I knew I had to listen. Her third condition was also about money. Christine explained that if the trial period of living together went well and we ended up getting married, she would want full control over our household finances. More specifically, she expected me to hand over my retirement income for her to manage. She explained this in a very matter-of-fact way. As someone who worked as a nurse for many years, she felt she had the skills to organize and manage money better. Each month, she would give me a small amount for personal use and take charge of the rest, making sure it went toward joint expenses and future planning. At first, I wondered if she was joking. I could not believe she meant I would have no say in how my own money was spent. But her tone was firm, and her explanation made it clear this was something she had fully thought through. Christine even mentioned that if I went over my monthly allowance, I would be expected to make up for it by doing extra chores around the house like cooking or cleaning. Although she described this as a practical and fair system, to me it felt patronizing. By now, I was finding it hard to stay composed. Her first request had caught me off guard. Her second had been overwhelming. But this one felt outright controlling. The idea of giving my full retirement income to someone I had only recently met seemed not just unreasonable, but deeply uncomfortable. In my view, whether it is marriage or simply living together, especially at this stage in life, it should be about teamwork. Even if one partner is better with financial matters, there should still be mutual involvement and respect. Giving up total financial control clashed with everything I stood for. I started wondering what kind of relationship Christine had in mind. Did she see it as a way to take full control? Or was this her method of making herself feel secure? Either way, I felt unsettled. A part of me wanted to leave the conversation right then, but I stayed partly curious, and partly because I did not want to be rude. Christine spoke with such confidence, fully convinced that her terms were reasonable, and I did not want to react in a way that might embarrass her. Still, a heavy feeling settled in me. The more I listened, the clearer it became that her idea of a relationship was very different from mine. And when Christine began to share her final condition, I could sense my patience starting to run thin. I kept listening politely as she continued. She explained that whether we moved in together or eventually got married, we would need to have separate bedrooms. She shared that since her divorce, she had been living alone for more than 10 years and had become used to having her personal space. According to her, sharing a room or even a bed would disturb her sleep and make her feel confined. She stressed that this condition was not open for discussion. To her, it was a necessary way to protect her space and maintain independence. At first, I tried to be understanding. Having separate bedrooms is not unusual, especially among older couples, and it can even be beneficial in some situations. But in the context of her earlier demands, this condition only added to my concerns. What really stood out to me was not just the request, but how inflexible and one-sided all of her conditions had been. There was no room for discussion, and each term seemed designed with her needs in mind, with little thought for mine. As she wrapped up her list of requirements, it became clear just how different her vision of a relationship was from my own. I had arrived at this meeting with the hope of finding someone I could connect with, someone to share peaceful moments, mutual care, and the little joys of everyday life. Instead, I found myself being presented with a structured list of rules that made the entire situation feel more like a contract than a connection. Thought about the life I had built and the principles I believed in. After working for so many years, I wanted these later years to be filled with calm, happiness, and meaningful companionship. But Christine's expectations seemed to take away the very things I valued most: kindness, trust, and shared understanding. Even though I recognized that her conditions may have come from personal experiences or a wish to protect herself, I could not ignore the feeling that her approach lacked the warmth and honesty I was looking for in a relationship. After she finished, as Christine finished speaking, she looked at me quietly, waiting for my reaction. I took a brief pause to gather my thoughts before responding. I thanked her for being open and direct about what she was seeking in a partner. Then, with as much kindness as I could offer, I explained that I did not believe I could meet those expectations. Her face changed slightly first, showing a hint of surprise, and turning into a calm smile. She nodded, acknowledging what I had said, without trying to argue or convince me otherwise. I made a polite excuse about needing to leave for another appointment, and quickly brought the conversation to a close dot as I walked out of the cafe. I felt a mix of emotions: relieved that I had stayed true to what I believed in, but also a bit disappointed that the connection I had hoped for turned out to be so different from what I imagined. Later that day, sitting on my porch with a cup of tea, I found myself thinking about the entire conversation. The more I reflected, the more I realized that Christine and I were simply not a good match. Her conditions, though perhaps fair from her own point of view, were not something I could accept without giving up parts of who I was. That moment also helped me understand how important it is to listen to your inner voice. Christine's confidence and clear boundaries might be admirable to some, but they did not match the values I cared about: honesty, humility, and the willingness to build something together, not separately. The experience gave me a stronger understanding of what kind of relationship I truly want. If I am unable to find someone who shares my values and views on life, then I would rather stay on my own than give up the peace I have found. I reminded myself that being alone is not something to fear. In fact, being with the wrong person can bring more stress than comfort. In the days that followed, I thought not only about my meeting with Christine, but also about the reality of dating at this stage in life. Many of us carry emotional wounds from the past, and it is natural to want protection. But I believe that real relationships must be built on shared respect, trust, and mutual understanding, not strict rules or financial expectations. To anyone considering a relationship later in life, I would offer this simple advice: know your value, listen to your heart, and do not settle for anything that costs you your peace or happiness. And always remember, love that comes with age carries the wisdom of gold.